Today I have Alan Siege from Small Business Management Consulting, and the goal with these interviews is really to go out there and look for entrepreneurs who are currently making use of virtual assistants in one part of their business, and for them to share their experience and talk about how they're outsourcing tasks and all that, so that you can get the context of how they use the virtual assistant in their business and learn from them, and hopefully go out there and implement the ideas for yourself. So before we go forward, Alan, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them exactly what you do.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Alan Siege. I want to thank you, Owen, for inviting me to be on your show. I have a company called Small Business Management Consulting, and the way I describe what I do is I help businesses tell their business story better. I do that in a variety of ways, primarily through helping them make strategic decisions better, helping them with their marketing, and helping them with their financial arrangements, so that a good client of mine is someone who wants to get to the next level of their business and is having some trouble getting there.
Okay, so I guess you walk them through the process of trying to get their business to perform better and stuff like that.
That's right, and one of the ways that I do that involves the use of a newsletter that I send out on a fairly regular basis. And the reason I mention this is because it was the need to do that more efficiently that I first engaged a virtual assistant. I had heard about people who use them for many years because it's not a new profession, although it's grown quite a bit, I think, in the last few years. And I was kind of amazed that people could do this, that you could have someone who is nowhere near you, who you may never meet, actually do work for you. And a friend of mine who I've done some work with described her relationship with a company that she was using, and she used it for a variety of things. She had a blog and so forth, and this company helped her update that, did a variety of things, and I thought, I'll check it out. So I did, and because she gave me such a good recommendation, I thought, well, let's give it a try. They had a nice offer that for the first 5 hours it was free, which was always sweet. And I began with a relatively simple assignment. I asked them to
basically... What company is that? Because I'm sure by now the audience is wondering, what company is that?
Okay, I'll tell you. It's called Today's Admin, or Today's Administration.
Okay.
They're based in Michigan. If you want, I can tell you the details of how to reach them, but I wasn't sure I was going to give them publicity or not. If you want,
the whole goal of the interviews is to try and expose as many people as possible to the concept of virtual assistant, and hopefully, if they have need, regardless of whether they end up coming to us or going to whoever, the most important thing is they understand. But back to the interview. So you contacted them, and
well, again, they have a particular way of working, which, like I said, is they let you try it out for a few hours. You can give them a small project, and if you like them, they can add on to it. Obviously, every company does it slightly differently in terms of their rates and so forth. But basically, for me, I asked them to update what was a pretty involved database. I have many hundreds of names on it, but I found that the time it took me to add to the list and categorize them correctly, because each one was coded a certain way, was pretty time-consuming. And frankly, it didn't pay me to do it. I would sometimes make mistakes, first of all, because it's typing in names and typing in email addresses, and you get one letter wrong, and you basically it's gone. So. And I often did it late at night when I was tired, so that was even more of a mistake.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were obviously willing to take any kind of format of names, and I gave them in all formats. I gave them sign-up sheets. I gave them business cards. I gave them slips of paper, all sorts of versions of people's names, addresses, and phone numbers and email addresses. And, their task was to input them into my list. But in this case, they also had to consolidate a few different lists, which took a little time. And again, the most important part, well, one of the most important parts was that they coded them correctly. In other words, I needed to know where the name came from. So I gave them the reference, whether it was from a meeting where I gave a talk, or whether it was from a meeting that I just went to meet other people. Every group of cards or group of people had a reference, and they were coded that way. So that was my first use of them. And, that went very well, because it freed me up from this task that I didn't like to do and didn't do all that well. And then, should I continue?
No, definitely. I was trying to also find out, you said something about how, it wasn't even paying you to do that task specifically. I mean, how did you come to that realization that, that wasn't a good use of your time?
Well, I actually remember not too long ago listening to a talk by someone else whose name I'm not going to remember, who talked about the importance of delegation in running a small business. And I've always known that to be true, but like most people, I don't like to delegate. I like doing myself, which is because, you want the control. You want to make sure it happens the way you think it should happen. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's probably smart. But it really is foolish when it comes to certain things. And between this talk... Yeah?
Yeah, I lost what you said previously. Can you repeat yourself? The Skype signal was acting up.
Okay. And you can hear me again, though,
yes.
Right now?
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. Let's see. The point was that, to delegate was the most important thing to do, because I was taking just too much time to do it, and I was sort of encouraged to delegate more. And since I found this company that seemed to know what they were doing, I thought I'd give it a try. In the end, I've now become quite a convert, because honestly, whether it's the simple task of putting in names, or I've used them for other things, which I can talk about as well, that are much more complicated. And I found it to be very effective. I'll tell you about this other project that I'm working on, which is something I'm really excited by. Along with my work as a business consultant, I'm also a storyteller, and I've always wanted to combine these two interests. So I developed a project called Once Upon a Venture, where I interview entrepreneurs and turn those interviews into stories. The only trouble with this is that it's very labor intensive. And the labor involved, interviewing them, which is fun. Then the hard part was transcribing that interview, then editing the transcription, and then editing the audio so that it sounded good. Because a lot of the interview, not all of it is useful. Not everything people say, you want to hear.
Yeah.
So I had to edit it down. But I had a partner who was helping me do this, and he was pretty good at it. But what I learned, which is a lesson I think a lot of people learn when you have a partner, is that even though he did it willingly, he and I had to go our separate ways several months ago because something going on in his life that he needed to move on with.
Definitely.
And it left me in a big hole because he was doing all the editing. In other words, I would do interviews, which I love to do, and then I would pass on the edit function to him. Once he left, I didn't know how to do it. I tried to teach myself how to do audio editing, which is doable, by the way.
Yeah.
However, it can take a long time to do a relatively simple edit. So here I was with the same situation, meaning I had a task that needed to be done that I was not that good at. Again, I could have taught myself, but I just realized, look, this is silly. So I went on a place called Elance, which I would really recommend to people. It's literally the letter E-LANCE.
Yeah.
And it's a clearinghouse of people who do everything. I mean, everything. And I put in a notice. I said, I'm looking for someone who can do audio editing and transcription. And, I got bids from people all over the world. It was pretty wild, actually. And I picked somebody whose price was, good, but I felt I could communicate with without having a language problem. And we began working. Elance has a very particular pay structure where you pay as you go. You have to pay as you go. This is kind of awkward. My daughter has just arrived in my house, so I'm going to have to just...
It's okay. We like to make the interviews as real as possible. Anything goes.
You may hear her voice in the background. That's the reason I'm saying that.
No problem.
I'm not going to interrupt. I'm just saying you may hear her. At any rate, this was a different kind of virtual assistant because this was not the same company that did my data entry. However, what he did for me was he would take the the audio. He would make a written transcription, then I would edit it, send it back to him, and then he would edit the audio based on my written notes. And he would do this, with great speed, accuracy, and at a very reasonable price. And that was the whole
question I have too
point.
Is during the process of trying to find the person to help you with the audio edits. I'm sure you were flooded with a bunch of different candidates. I'm trying to figure out what process did you use to on the Elance website to use to choose the right fit for what your job was.
Well, the way Elance works is that people are rated based on the satisfaction of previous relationships they've had. So he had, a good track record. He had also just done this before. Some people said they could do it, but they hadn't done it.
Yeah.
In other words, they were going to try to do it. Also there was a function of price. You see, I knew that I was going to have a lot of these to do. And so if someone was charging me, a couple of $100 for one edit, that I would be it would be very, very pricey. So I couldn't do that. And so I was able to negotiate with someone because, well, first of all, their price was more reasonable, but I also explained to them that I was going to have a lot of work for them. And I think that contributed to their price as well. But the answer to how I picked them, to be honest, it could have gone badly. They could have been really slow. They could have been very inaccurate. But I did one, it's a way to test it. It wasn't that expensive, and it worked out. And then since then, he and I work directly. We don't actually work through Elance anymore. I pay him as he works, and I pay him through PayPal.
Definitely. So I guess the takeaway for me from that is that you had a list of requirements for what you wanted them to do for you, and then you also had kind of like a affordability range where this is the price if you're going to be doing the work over and over again. This is what you can really afford to pay the person, and then you back that up kind of with verification of have they done this kind of work recently? And I guess maybe on Elance they have a way in which they can show you the type of work they have done.
Well, it's not only the type of work they've done, they can even give you samples of work that they've done to show you how they work. It's pretty interesting. It's a pretty well organized business, from what I can tell.
Nice.
But going back to the other virtual assistant, the company that did the names inputting, I started to really, well, let's put it this way. That's the first project we had together. But I really wanted her to do other things. And what she was able to do is really exciting for me because this is where the two projects got linked together. Once Upon a Venture, the actual blog site was not that well constructed. And so I wanted someone to help me redo it. And the same virtual assistant who entered the names into a database had the skill to redo my blog. And she did it at a very reasonable virtual assistant price. Then not only did she redo it to make it more attractive, she added features that the original one didn't have. So now, OnceUponAventure.com is a place that I really like sending people to. It's attractive, it's easy to listen to. Soon you'll be able to download the PDFs of the interview as well as them. And she's doing all these things for me. Now, the one thing I would say, which I have noticed, and I think this is probably universally true, is that because this person works for many people, you're on a list of projects.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to understand that where you are on their list may not be 1, 2, or 3, because they may spend an hour on you and then move on to the next, and then the next, and then the next, and may not get back to you, immediately. So that was a small. It's not a problem, but it's something I've realized that I would have to. I don't know. I'm not sure if I could even get it if I wanted. If I had lots of things that I wanted her to do, she might have to pass them off to someone else because she has other clients.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a problem if you had a real rush for something, and it was a big project. But by and large, I'm not complaining, By and large, it's worked pretty well. She's available by telephone when I need her. She's responsive by email. But, sometimes the actual work takes a little longer than I would have thought.
So now you have this project where you're making use of virtual assistants from different companies working together for one specific project. I want to dive into how, if at all, there's any kind of communication between them to actually get that project done, or how do you manage that process of maybe when the first person gets the audios for you, how do you hand it over to the next person to take over the next part of the project?
Well, that's an interesting one. There's a loop that's involved to do this, which involves the following. And this is happening as we speak because there was a little bit of a glitch. It turns out that the recording for one was placed on the wrong label, so that now two stories have the same story in them.
Yeah.
So we have to remove one and get the correct one. So in order for this to happen, I hope you don't mind. This gets pretty detailed now, Owen.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead. Let's give details.
Okay, I'll explain to you. Because I use a service that is not a virtual assistant service, something called Audio Acrobat. And Audio Acrobat is a company that allows you to make, recordings of all kinds and to save them on their server.
Okay.
And to access them. So now, and that's a password accessible site. So you join, you pay a monthly fee, and you can use a variety of services on Audio Acrobat. So to solve my problem that I now have, I'm going to give the virtual assistant my access information. She will go to Audio Acrobat and retrieve the correct audio recording. And then she will then take that recording and place it in the correct file on my Once Upon a Venture site. So in this case, she's not interacting with another virtual assistant. She's acting with another service that I use. So the only time there might be a problem is if she needed to speak to the person who did the actual the audio editing, if there was some problem with that. But that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So right now they tend to operate separately.
So I take it from that is that you have a system in which once the person who does the audio edit is done with the audio, they basically hand over that thing over to you and upload it probably onto the Acrobat website. And then there is now the time where the other VA comes and takes the information and does some of the other work. So I guess if one has to work with a bunch of different VAs from different companies, you just have to find a system that will allow you to, have the project, kind of like a project management tool, for instance, that can help that communication back and forth.
Yeah, no, that's true of it. I mean, there's a certain trust factor involved here, which I have to admit crossed my mind. I'm giving this person access to things.
Yeah.
In other words, I give her my password. On that site of Audio Acrobat is the only other copy of things. Now, if something got screwed up by accident, I would have a problem. I don't have multiple, I don't have multiple backups of everything. It's just too cumbersome to do that. So I have to trust that when she goes to Audio Acrobat, she knows what she's doing so that she won't accidentally delete something that I need. Or for that matter, this is also another technical issue, but in order for me to be able to have the transcript downloadable, it has to be put into a PDF format.
Yeah.
And that's, okay, she can do that for me. The virtual assistant can do that. And this is the part of it that is a little confusing even to me. She explained to me that in order for it to be downloadable, it has to sit on a server somewhere. And she was going to try to use my own email account to place it. Again, I had to give her access to the back end of my email account, which theoretically would enable her to change anything she wanted, which I would not want her to do. In other words, the terms of my contract You know, I mean, once you're in someone's account, you know, you could do anything to their account.
Yeah.
So you do have to trust this person, because I think in a lot of situations you have to give them access. And another example of access, I use a company for my email marketing, for which I have that very big database. I use a company that's like Constant Contact, but it's called Vertical Response.
Okay.
Again, it's a password-protected system. I have to give her my password for her to go in there to add names. If she should accidentally delete a big file, I would be in deep doo-doo. I do not have, that's where they exist, you know. So I don't worry about it, but I've thought about it.
So that brings me to a good question too, because some of the listeners now might say, okay, there's an issue of trust, but how did you walk through that whole issue of trust? How did you build trust with the VAs that you currently have now?
So the only way I could do that is to do it step by step. In other words, I let her have access to one thing and see how well she does. You know, had that first project gone really badly, I wouldn't have hired the company.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even, you know, continued with them, because it was a relatively simple project. All you had to do was, you know, type in names. I mean, yes, you know, you can, you know, you have to be accurate, but it's a relatively simple assignment. It doesn't require HTML. There's nothing. It's just straight typing. And, you know, she did it quite quickly. And I'm pretty sure accurately.
So my takeaway from that was really more of a thing. You walk yourself through the process gradually, step by step, and building the trust with her, and then allowing, you know, all your VAs access to several additional items that you want them to make use of based on building that trust. It's not a thing where you just offload everything at once, but you want to, you know, trust and verify, I guess.
I wouldn't. Yeah, didn't Ronald Reagan make that famous statement? You know, trust but verify. I believe that was it came into the Soviets. Anyway, whatever. But it's true. Look, if you're running your own business, you care a lot about it. You know, you don't give it away that easily. On the other hand, I think you're foolish if you hold on to everything yourself. But, you know, it's kind of no different than having an employee.
Yeah.
An employee could mess you up too.
Mm-hmm.
An employee could make a stupid mistake, and you'd be in trouble, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you have to hope that you hire people that are, you know, reliable, trustworthy, and committed to what you're doing. Now, these people are not committed to me, and they're just working for me. Mm-hmm. But they're professional, and that's pretty good, you know. On the other hand, I will also say that what's been nice so far is that I'm also learning this system. You know, so sometimes I call and they're not necessarily in the mood to talk to me. Well, I don't mean the mood, but they're busy.
Busy, definitely, yeah.
And, you know, how they handle that is important. Or I get nervous about something and I want an answer right away. Mm-hmm. That's because that's how I'm learning. I mean, some people have a system set up where they have like a weekly meeting by phone, and where they go over everything that they're going to do, and then they don't speak again for another week. Yeah, and that's the deal. You know, you discuss every issue that you have, and they take notes, and they agree to do A, B, C, and D, and then they do it, and then you don't speak to them for a while. But it hasn't been that smooth on my end. Yeah,
because definitely it's really kind of a thing of how you work, right? And so you have to get VAs that are, you know, basically will work with you based on how you work. Otherwise, there is going to be room for friction in there. So,
well, that's right. It's really just that simple. The person has to be somewhat flexible. You know, I mean, I can respect that they have multiple clients and they can't always get to me right away. On the other hand, you know, I want them to at least acknowledge my issues when I present them, mm-hmm. And say they'll, you know, look into it, even if they're busy. You know, so it's a give and take on both sides, without question.
Definitely. I also want to see if we can dive into some more details as possible with the audio process you have going on. So I take it that the first person does the transcription, editing of the audio. The next person does the transcription. What other ways do you use?
It's the other way around. You see, the way it works is I conduct an interview with a person.
Okay.
And it's raw footage, so to speak. It may be an hour long. Mm-hmm. But the only way that I can edit it is to see it on paper. So I give the raw audio to the VA. Mm-hmm. He transcribes it in its raw form so that it might be an hour's worth of transcription.
Yeah.
But I then go through the actual written copy and I edit it on paper. And I tell him where to delete, where to combine things. And his job is to take my notes and re-listen to the audio and refabricate the audio according to my instructions.
Yeah.
So that's his skill. I mean, that's the real skill of audio editing. It's because it's all digital, it's pretty amazing what you can do. You can cut and paste people's voices and make it sound smooth or put things where they didn't exactly fit before.
Yeah.
And it just makes for a more interesting story. But that's what he's asked to do based on my instructions. And then I get back from him the actual audio that's been edited along with the new audio, with the new transcript edited as well. So each interview has several pieces to it, because once that's all done, then the other VA, as I said, is to pick it up and put it in the blog. In addition to that, each interview has a photograph that I have to give her.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because it's just more visually interesting.
Yeah, at least when you know who you speak, who's going to be on the interview.
Well, it's their brand, it's their logo. Yeah. So I try to capture that from their website, from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Sometimes she gets it for me. See, this is where the flexibility comes in, and part of the reason I liked this company was that not all VAs can do all these things. I mean, she and I think others in her company are pretty skilled at. They have a lot of knowledge of social media. Yeah. And how to use it, and how to use, I guess you could say how to create copy for social media, which is actually the next thing that we're working on. Because the real reason I wanted to redo the website, rather the blog site, is because I wanted it to be more attractive for people to come and listen to and make comments on.
In the first place, yes. Yeah.
That was the ultimate goal of this. And now what they're going to be doing is, and this is a little new to me, but they're going to be announcing changes. Well, they're going to be looking for blogs to post what I do on them. Okay. She's going to actually be doing research for me to find places where people who visit that site might be interested in what I do. So she's going to be doing some research on my behalf to sort of put what I do into their loop. And that could also be LinkedIn groups as well. LinkedIn, as you and others know, there's hundreds of groups.
So would that be kind of like she's trying to find people who she can syndicate your content with, I guess?
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly correct.
Nice. I mean, I'm already thinking that I should even title this interview "How to Make Use of Virtual Assistants to Work on Your Interviews and Audio Podcasts." Because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, who want information like this. They want this. They have this idea to talk on the mic and share information, but then the process behind the creation now of editing and making sure everything works out is a whole different story.
But I will say that, like everything else, it pays to know a little bit about each of the activities yourself.
That's a good point.
Because I did try to do audio editing, and I now know that I can't tell my VA to clip a middle of a sentence and then add something from another sentence 5 paragraphs away, it won't sound right. I mean, you can technically do it, but it would be like me talking to you right now and then you sticking into my mouth words I said 10 minutes ago. It would still be me talking, but it would sound completely strange.
So I guess maybe that point you made is kind of like if you have had experience to an extent in the task that you want to assign, then it helps you get realistic expectations of what to expect from somebody.
Oh, and you're right on the money. That's completely true, because that enables you to judge whether what they say they can do is good or bad, or reasonable. Because if I've never done it, how do I know? I mean, I know a little bit about LinkedIn groups. You know, I know how they work because I've joined many. So I now know that if she was to tell me I can only find a couple of groups to plug you into, I'd be like, well, I don't think that's true, because I'm a member of probably 15 myself already.
Yeah.
And the only way I know that is because I tried to do it. I joined them. Definitely. So it's a little bit like, you know, I think this is true for employees too. I mean, I think whenever you hire someone, in order for them to do their job pretty well, you have to know a little bit about the job you want them to do.
Yeah. Otherwise,
how do you really evaluate how good they are?
Definitely. I guess that's kind of like this. Which book says this? I think the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, where he's talking about, I don't know if you read that book, where he talks about delegation and abdication.
I don't remember that, but that's a nice word choice, because delegation is one thing and abdication is another. You know, if you delegate, it usually means that you have a job description or a project description.
Yeah.
You have the person who's skilled to do it, and you delegate them to do that job. If you abdicate, you're like throwing up your hands and saying, "Help me, help me."
Definitely. Definitely. And I'm also sure that with the audio, the process you have for your audio, you know, transcription, and also updating onto the blog, and now possibly also syndicating this information for your podcast onto other websites. I'm sure as you go through each process, you guys are systemizing everything, having kind of like a manual for how you do your work. So if one thing happened to the VAs, for instance, you can easily take that information and have someone else take over without having to do that much of training, I guess.
Well, we'll see how it goes. You know, it's in the works right now. I mean, things can go wrong. You know, I mean, you and I tried to have this interview a week ago.
Yeah, Skype messed us up.
Something messed us up because the sound quality on your end was terrible.
Yeah.
It's better. I think we know why, but things happen. You know, I feel lucky so far, in the sense that nothing horrible has happened and mostly good has happened, you know, from my experience. And, but I do know that just like I have to delegate, I have to be vigilant about making sure of things. I have to check up on people. I mean, you know, this is a small point, but the VA forgot to put in a couple of pictures that I had asked her to put in. But the only way I knew that was to keep checking. You know, I'm not on every story all the time. So I had to just go back in and say, you know, oh, just look. It wasn't done, so I had to email her, and she said, oh, well, I'm sorry, I forgot. You know, it's not a crime, but I had to remind her. It just happened. And that's happened because, and I think this is, I think, a possible trade-off of having a VA, is that they serve multiple clients. You know, that's how their business runs. And, you know, if you had a full-time employee, that they would only work for you. But you pay a ton more money, wouldn't you?
Well, another thing, too, is, I guess, I mean, because people can definitely hire VAs to work fully for them if they wanted to. But another thing, too, I think of it is like, if you have somebody only working for you based on them delivering what you need them for, then you don't need all those extra fluff of them just being there, basically like if they were an employee working for you and not really doing that much, but they, you know, they're clocking in the hours. But now at least you know that, you know, if the person is working, they're doing specifically your task, and you're only going to be billed for the time they're working for you. That's another good point, I will say to you, because I get itemized statements, and I do mean itemized,
down to the minute of what she does for me. And so it's the same with the transcription guy. I mean, he bills me at a certain rate, and the rate is predetermined. But unlike employees who don't account for themselves that well, they account for themselves down to the minute, which is pretty efficient, because I'm only paying for the time they literally work for me. Now that could be a phone call.
Yeah.
Still a billable activity, but most of the time it's other things. And then they give me a statement.
Definitely. And also I think another benefit might be also the fact that because they're working for you so detailed down to the minute, it also allows you to, from the overview point of things, figure out ways in which you can even optimize what you're doing and even reduce the time as well, I guess. Because you have I guess so, right?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I don't always know how long something's going to take. There are some things that I can estimate how long it should take you to input names in a database. Yeah. It's a little hard for me to estimate how long it should take you to reconfigure parts of my blog, because I only have limited knowledge of HTML coding.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to trust again that they're not going to overcharge me. But the big point about VAs is that if all of a sudden you got a bill for an hour, they have to give you quite a detailed description of what they did for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a long block of time for them to work for you. So you're usually, you're not in the dark about what they've done. And that's a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And well, before we even go, I want you to leave that person who maybe decided that they want to make use of interviews, audio podcasts, for their business, but they get a little bit overwhelmed by maybe the process of actually having someone else delegate it. Can you hear me?
You can hear me. I can hear you. I'm as I'm staring, I'm looking up something to be able to tell. The name of the company that I used is called Today's Administrative Solutions, LLC.
Yeah.
Again, it's Today's Administrative Solutions, LLC. And obviously you could find them on the web at todaysadmin.com. And that's today's without the apostrophe, just TODAYSADMIN.com.
Yeah, and before we go, I was trying to get you to leave one word of encouragement for that person who maybe they want to start making use of interviews and podcasts to kind of.
I would say that the word I would say to you is delegate, don't abdicate, because you really can't do all these things that well. And there are people out there. It's phenomenal what kind of skills are out there that people will sell to you at pretty reasonable rates of pay. That is, I think, the big lesson here is that if you were to factor in the learning time it would take you, in my case, to audio edit well, geez Louise, by the time I got down, I would have spent hours. I would have delayed the project by many, many, probably weeks. And in the end, how good would I be? I would be only so-so. So that to me is the lesson. And this could apply to your finances. I mean, lots of people hire VAs to manage their bills, to pay their bills. I know people use VAs to book airplane flights. I mean, to do errands even, for that matter. Anything that, they need to have done that they don't want to do themselves. The only other thing I want to just, put out there one more time, because I'd love for people to visit this site, is the Once Upon a Venture site. I'd love for people to, head over there and listen to a story or two and make a comment. And that site, again, it's just www.onceuponaventure, all one word, onceuponaventure.com.
Thank you very much. And how else besides the website can they get a hold of you? On your Twitter or email?
Well, no, I'm a tad old school in that department. I'm going to give my email address is my name, which is alan.siege, alan.siege, at sbmc.biz, B-I-Z. SBMC stands for my business.
Thank you very much for doing the interview.
Thank you, Owen. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and maybe we'll talk again.
Definitely. So we're done.
So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I really want to know what exactly you think. I mean, if I suck and if I'm not doing a good job, I want to know, because by your input and your comments, your suggestions, your feedback, that's how I'm going to improve on the entire package of what I'm sharing with you. I really want to improve so that you know that your time is well spent when you watch my videos. And if I do good on interviews, and if you like certain things I do, please let me know so I can even improve upon that as well. And I want to thank you really, because your time is well spent, and I mean, your time is important to me, and I want to make sure that I continuously put this information in front of you. So I want you to join my community, and in order to do that, you need to click on the link that says get the free ebook, enter in your name and email, and you will receive as a gift from me my free ebook titled The Entrepreneur's Guide to Running a Business in the Cloud. The reason I do that is because I want to share with you that information. You can check it out and make use of it in your business. In the same vein, I will be sending you email updates every time I have new blog posts, as well as if I have new stuff that's not even on the blog, I want to share with you. That way we can stay in contact. One more thing. Before you go, I want to also let you know that if you are really serious about finding, hiring, training, and even working with virtual assistant, if right now you want to get that started, why don't you sign up for my free webinar where I share everything about the entire process. And you can get to do that by clicking on the link on the very top of my blog where it says sign up for the free webinar. Again, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you next time.